Welcome back. So in last session, we learned about responsive web design, and the next a very interesting thing available in CSS 3 is about special effects. What we are going to learn is how to make our page content look more interesting and animated. So we have some features available in CSS, and we are going to use them now. We will start with the text effects. We have already made a lot of changes or a lot of special appearance in the text using font, color, background color, etc. And we have also used shadow effect. Now we are going to see a few more effects which may be useful in certain situations. Right? So let's take a look at them right now. The first property among these text effects is text overflow. Now, when you have a section where the text is larger than it can be accommodated in the section, suppose you have created a div or p with a fixed height and width, and then you have put up too much text which is not accommodable in that height and width. What will happen? It will go beyond the screen dimension. So you can control how it will appear, and for that we can specify text overflow property. We have seen an overflow property earlier where we said in overflow do scroll or hidden or visible. By default it remains visible. So we can use them together, overflow property and text overflow property together, and it will give a very special effect on text when we have more than accommodable text in particular element. Let's take a look at the example which will help us understand it better. So we have this space, and suppose this is the text. This is a div or paragraph with a fixed dimension, and I have a long text. And the text, let me show you the text that I wanted to view here. And here it is saying this is a long text that will not fit in the box, right? So the width that is available is only available or enough for this is long text that will, nothing more than that, and rest of the content is clipped. Why clipped? Because the overflow is set to hidden. So how do we get that? So in this there is a property, there is a class over test1. So let's see what is defined here. Overflow is set to hidden and text overflow is set to clip. Now if I remove this, what will happen? I will have to open the original test, original source code to make such changes. So here it is. Now, if I make a change, suppose I remove this overflow clip, what will happen? Will it make any difference? No, because overflow has made it hidden, and overflow clip or text overflow clip will actually clip. That's the property of clip. And if you have said overflow auto means what? You remember that property? It will put the scroll bar automatically if the screen or the element dimension is not good enough, right? Hidden will just hide the extra content, and default is visible, of course, right? So if you have it visible, then it will remain visible like this beyond the dimension of the box. Okay, so which is not looking good. We wanted to limit the content in the visible area. So we first do overflow hidden, and then we specify text overflow. Default is clip, but when we say ellipsis, which what it will do is at the end it will put a triple dot, and then it looks like something more is available. Okay, now you want to make it visible. Yes, you can do that. What I do is I change the overflow to visible when I hover over this content. So it becomes visible, and the width of the screen has also increased to 100%. How is that happening? Because I have a hover pseudo class defined for this particular selector p over test2, which will change the overflow to visible and width to 100%. So overflow is changing from hidden to visible. There is one more possible value for text overflow, which will be accepting any other string. So instead of dot dot dot, which comes via ellipsis, you can say I want to have this text appearing. So you can put, say, maybe it will work. I will just have not tried it so far. So let's see if it works. I will have to put some more things here. I'm not going to experiment for now. All right. So this is how it works, the text overflow. This is very much known to you. You have used it earlier. Okay. The next text effect is on the word wrapping. So when you have a large text, and normally large text will appear in a paragraph and it will auto wrap unless until you have said no wrap to no wrap. Okay, no wrap property will make it appear in a single line horizontally, but default will be wrap. Okay, so word wrap will happen generally on the end of words. So as soon as you have a space character, it will wrap on that, or if it has a hyphen in the word, it will wrap there. But if you want to have a very different behavior, you can use other wrap property values, and that will make it appear differently. Very rarely used, but you can have it appear on, say, break of word. So you can break the word in the middle. So it is going horizontally, and it is now not able to accommodate even the current word. It will break the word onto the next line. Readability wise, it is poor. So I will not recommend you to use break word for word wrap. Okay, that's not recommended, but it works in certain situation. Do I have that example? No, I am not using it because I will generally not touch the word wrap. Okay, next text effect will be on word break. When you have broken the word for word wrap, then you specify some more rules on breaking the word. So you say break all, keep all, or break the word, which is basically subsidiary to word wrap. So again, I'm not going into the details of that. Not very important. Writing mode is an interesting property. So generally what you have is a horizontal writing, but you want to have a different appearance like vertical writing. And you want to specify a different styles. Say, for example, you have created a tabular structure, and first cell is saying the column name or the heading, and second cell is the long text. We have seen that in our biodata screen. So first column was saying headings like personal achievements and name and education, etc., etc. And the second column we has large values. Now, if the large value is too large, then the first cell content is basically wasting a lot of space below that or above that because of that extra space. Now, if you change the orientation of that to some from horizontal to vertical, it will occupy less width and it will look better too. Or for some other reasons also, you can have a different writing mode. Okay, what are the options? Default is horizontal. Minus TB means for vertical, it will use top to bottom. So top to bottom and horizontal, that is, it is like alignment. But in alignment, you are only placing the content somewhere in the box. It is changing the orientation of the text itself. Okay, so orientation change is done using writing mode. So let's go back to the example and see how things are appearing. So here in this bottom section, you see various examples of writing mode. So you can change from horizontal TB to non-default ones, which is vertical RL and vertical LR. Vertical RL means the horizontal content will become vertical, and you will generally write from left to right. So instead, horizontal will change to right to left or left to right. So you can change that and it will be showing up very differently. You can do that anywhere in the HTML page. So in the second text here, what is happening? It's a paragraph, and somewhere in the middle of the paragraph, a span has been created with a different writing mode, and that content appears vertical in the middle here, if you see this, and the rest of the content is normal. Here, the entire text has been written in the vertical RL mode. Okay, so if you have to have such effects in your page, you can use this property appropriately. So this adds more ammunition to you in terms of text effects. But remember, you already have a lot of capability using font, color, background color, shadow, etc., etc. So you will very rarely use these. I think what you will use mostly for a special effect is the writing mode. Others, you have already a way. You will generally not use word wrap. Okay, let's take a look at the next special thing, transforms. You can transform your content in a 2D or 2-dimension or 3-dimension. So let's take a look at the properties that are available to transform. What is the meaning of transform? So when you do a transform, basically what you want to do is you want to move the content from its original position. You want to rotate it a bit. You want to scale. Scale means zoom up or zoom down, or you want to skew it or make it little tilted. Okay, so these are the transforms. So you want to place the content at a different position than its usual position, or rotate it, or increase or decrease the dimension, or you want to twist it. Okay, all of these are possible using the transform property, or there are some additional transform properties that you can use. Transform is the shorthand, but there are many properties which can be used as transforms, subsidiary properties. Okay, so what are the transforms that you can use? Matrix, translate, scale, rotate, and skew. Of course, there are some overridden functions. These are like functions which will be the value of the transform. So let's take a look at them one by one. Translate is to move it from its original position to some other position. So you want to move it from current position to some other position, you can use transform. Okay. Second one is scale, where scale will make it zoom, and it depends on the value that you specify. Zooming will be generally in percentages, so you can change that. Okay, it's changing the width and height. Third thing is rotate, and you basically rotate the element in certain angle in 2 dimension. So you have to specify the angle, and unit of angle will be in degree. Notation for that will be DEG. So you specify the angle between 0 and 360 degree, and the content will be rotated. And the last one is skew. So you want to tilt. You don't want to retain it in the normal horizontal vertical alignment. You want to tilt it a bit by certain angle. So you can specify those angles for X and Y dimension, and then it will get skewed, stretched, or compacted in certain direction. Okay, so let's take a look at the matrix function. Matrix basically takes 6 parameters, and it's like a combination function for everything, and 6 parameters are equivalent to 6 mathematical functions for rotate, scale, and move and skew the elements. What are those 6 parameters? First one is to scale in X direction, skew in Y direction, skew in X direction, scale in Y direction, translate in X direction, and translate in Y direction, right? So in this order: scale, skew, skew, scale, and translate, translate. So if you specify these values in appropriate units, it will make a combined effect on the element. Okay, so transformation will be quite useful. Before going into the 3D, let's see an example. So you see the same content is presented in 3 different forms, which looks so interesting. So this is the first one is the normal form, and second and third are transformed. Let's take a look at the code. So content is same. You see this is a normal, so it is a div, this is another div, this is another div. So 3 divs, and each of them are, first one has no special effect because there is no class or ID specified. Second and third have IDs, and then corresponding matching ID selector has been given. And in the transform, the property that you are seeing is matrix 1, that means scale in X direction. What were the values? Let's go back and keep it here handy so that we can compare. So first one is scale X, skew Y, skew X, and then scale Y. So again, 1, which means scale X, so don't scale, then skew X, skew Y, and scale Y. So scaling is not changing, means size is not changing. However, orientation is changing. Orientation is changing in Y direction for the div 2, and then translation is happening. So it is shifted 150x and 10y from its original position. So let's now take a look at the page itself again, and we will see how it is becoming effective. So the second one is shifted X. So X should have been here at the beginning, is at 0, which is shifted 150. Then the dimension has not changed. So height and width has not changed, but the skew factor has changed. And skew is saying, well, for horizontal direction, no change, but for vertical directions, half, 0.5 change. So that is what has become effective. If you look at the div1 effects, you will see that you can evaluate what is happening. So metrics first and fourth parameters are about scale. So scale is not changing. So you can see that the dimension has not changed. However, second and third properties are indicative of the skew factor. So skew minus 0.3 is that the x direction, it has changed. Minus means upward, and 0.3% means 30%. And y direction, the things have not changed. So in vertical, you are not seeing any change. And transform is 0, 0. So it is still attached to its original position of top left 0, 0. Right. So this is very interesting. You can transform your element from its original position. And this is very much similar to setting a position conditionally, but it is not just setting the position. You can see borders are also adjusted. So borders are there, but that is getting adjusted appropriately. So it is like inclined borders, etc., etc. Right? So that is the 2D effect of transformation. Let's see if we can transform things in third dimension as well. That means the vertical direction. You have horizontal, vertical, and something which is vertical to the screen is the third dimension. Can we do that? Well, the same transform property gets us more functions which we can use for 3D transformation. So let's take a look at them. Some additional functions. Matrix was there for 2D, but matrix 3D takes few more matrices, and that is really complicated. So we'll have to understand the meaning of each and every property and its sequence. However, we have specific values, and we can specify those values separately multiple times. So transform, translate X, translate Y, and translate Z. That is the new thing. Okay, so translate 3D can be done in XYZ as one unit. However, you can do it individually if you are wanting to translate only in particular direction. Similarly, for scale, you have a scale 3D function available, and others, scale X, scale Y is there from the beginning. Scale Z has been added. Rotate was the function earlier available. Now you have a rotate 3D also. Okay. So you can rotate things, you can scale things, you can translate things, that means move things from to a different position in 3 dimension as well. Okay, I'm not going to do the examples here. You can very well try it. Next thing is transitions. So transitions is going to give you a feeling of animation when the property value is changing, and that is very important for us to understand first, and then transitions. The property that we have is, of course, transition, and then there are subsidiary properties. Transition is a shorthand where we can specify all the other values in one single definition. So what are the things that we can put up in transition? The most important value for transition will be transition property. That means I have to apply transition on which CSS property. Suppose width is changing, I have to say, do the width change with the transition. And second thing will be the duration. So transition duration. So if the width is changing from, say, X to Y, from 100 pixel to 300 pixel, if I don't have transition, it will change immediately. But if I have transition applied, it will change slowly from 100 to 300. Or if it has to come back, it will transition slowly from 300 to 100. So width is the transition property on which we specify the duration, transition duration in certain seconds or milliseconds. Unit has to be specified, of course. So S or MS will make it counted. And then third thing is transition timing function. So by default, it will be a slow transition, but there are many timing functions available which will actually help you decide the effect of transition. And the fourth property is transition delay, which will allow the transition to act as if there is a delay. That means it will first create a pause and then the transition effects will begin. And that pause can be positive or negative. So it will be added to the duration. So duration plus delay is the total transition period. Okay, and if you have a negative delay value, then duration will be counted as that much less. That means actual duration will be lesser, and the timing functions behavior will mm, be different. It will appear like it has already started that much time earlier. Okay, so all these four can be used together, but what is important and mandatory for you to specify are two things: transition property and duration. We'll take an example and we will learn about those. We will do it together in the transition property itself, and this is the order in which you will specify property, duration, timing function, and delay. All right, so transition timing function, there will be a big list of things, but we will not get into that because we are going to see the example with the default timing function. So let's take an example quickly. So I have this transition example, and what will happen is when I move my mouse over this red X section, it will change its color and it will change its dimension, but that change will be transitioned. That means it will slowly change. So let's take a look at this. When I put this, it's changing the width and it's not changing the color right now because the transition is not set on the color, and of course the property is also not changing. So let me now make that effective. So let me see the code, and here I'm saying on div hover the width is 300 pixels. Suppose I also specify color, and from red it should become green. Okay, now if I go back to the page and let me close the other pages. Okay, when I move the mouse over here, you will see something is happening. The transition happened. Let me first do it without transition. And it is the background color, by the way. So foreground color, there is no text, so color, foreground color is not changing. So let me refresh again. Okay. So color has immediately changed, you see? Because there is no transition happening on the color while width is transitioning. If I remove the transition completely, then it will behave normally. When I move the mouse over it, it will immediately increase the width from 100 to 300 and color will also change. Okay? It is in a flicker, but transition will make it go slow. Okay, now if I have one more transition on background, then I can say this background, and for that I may specify the same time or I may specify a different time too. And if I say 4 seconds, so width will increase in 2 seconds, but background will slowly change and it will change in 4 seconds. Yep. And if I change it to say 10, then the width will increase to its maximum in 2 seconds, but background will change in 10 seconds. Yeah, so it is transitioning from red to green. So it is changing the color value gradually from red portion to green portion. So you see a lot of intermediate colors. in the width also you see a lot of intermediate widths appearing. So it is not directly changing from 100 pixel to 300 pixel. It is gradually changing from 100 to 300. So it gives you a feeling of animation, isn't it? And that is what is interesting. Okay, so that is about transitions. We can have different effects by specifying a different timing function. The default is ease. So simple, slow start, then gradually it will fast, and then it will slow down again, which is like 0.25, 0.1, 0.25 and 1. So I really don't understand that cubic Bezier thing for now, and we don't have to worry. We can use the ready-made values, say ease in, ease out, step start, and step end, and any of these. So if I change, say, transition for one of these, what will happen? So let me change the transition for the second property and see what happens. So for background color, I said 10s and I say linear. Will it make any difference? Visible difference? Let's try and see. So there was no change in the speed. It was continuously in the same speed. So ease will initially be slow, then fast, and then again slow. So it is like animation behavior. Okay, and transition is specified on the div so that it is not just happening on the hover, it is happening on the reverse also. Okay, so transition is applied on the default value, so it is active on both direction. Okay, so you can do that appropriately. Let's move to the next effect now, and the next effect is animations. This is the ultimate thing that we have. We can define animations using keyframes. So we can define as many animations as we want and then use them repeatedly on different elements. Animation will gradually change from current style to the new style at certain times. So behavior wise, it is pretty much similar to the transition that we have just seen. It is changing the style from current style to new style. But what is good here is you can specify different styles in the intermediate time period. Say from 0% to 100%, you can say at 10% it should be this, at 20% this should be the style, 30% like this. So it will change the things gradually. Now you can use this for many purposes, including showing images at different times. Suppose you have to have a GIF to be created, a film to be created using images. You have still images and you want to show it like a film, then you can specify different images to be shown gradually, transitioning over the gradual change period, and it will be so nice. You can create movies out of your images. So fantastic. Okay, so let's see how we can do these animations. So we have a whole bunch of animation related properties, but the primary property that we have to use is the keyframes, where we are actually defining the transition stages, where we are defining the animation code. So keyframes means the frames on which the styles will get applied. And where it is getting applied? The place where we will say, well, this animation has to be applied here. So keyframes are defined with a unique identifier. It's like a variable declaration, like a class definition. And then that class can be used in where by applying it on the animation name property, or when you are using the animation shorthand, you can use that as the first value. Okay. Then you have plenty of other properties that you will be using as an individual property, or you can mix them all together in the animation shorthand property itself. We will see this. So when you are going to use the animation shorthand, this is the order of properties. The first value will be the name of the animation, that is the identifier for the keyframes. You can have multiple keyframes and you can choose one of those for the given animation. Then duration of the animation, timing function. So duration timing function matches to the duration and timing function that you had in transition. Animation delay is also the same, the transition delay and animation delay. What is new here is the iteration count. Now you want to run the whole animation only a few times. Default is something, maybe 0. Then you have direction. So you can animate in forward direction from 0% to 100%, or from 100% to 0%. So the order of application of styles can be changed by changing the direction. Fill mode is about what will be the final state of things. So you start from something, you transition through many styles, and then what is the end style? You can say that in the fill mode. And then play state tells you whether it is animation is running, or it is paused. Okay, so let's take at the example. You see, this is continuously changing its color between red and yellow, and then it is coming back to red, and then it goes back to yellow, and it is like alternating. So it is so active, and this is the minimal that we could do. Okay, so it is the animation where the condition is that change the background color between red and yellow. So it's from red to yellow. That's the keyframe defined. And then when it is used on a particular box, it is going to play it through by the values that I have specified on iteration count and direction, etc., etc. So let me show you the code now. So here is the div, which is animating a simple div. So div has certain styles, and div has styles like width and height and background color. The initial color is set to red, and then a bunch of animation related properties. So for using that, let's first understand the animation keyframe that has been defined. Example, and here I'm saying from this to this. Now this is as good as 0% to 100%. So you can specify different styles for different percentage positions. So from is a literal for 0, and to is a literal for 100. Okay, so initially style will be this, final style will be this. Okay, we can also set other styles now. So it is like width has changed to is there any width? 100 pixels. So let me make it 200 pixel, and I say height is also 200 pixel. So what I'm doing is from to 2. So it will not just change the color, it will also increase the size. And then when I have set iteration count to infinite, that means it will run forever. And when I am saying direction is alternate, that means it is going forward and then coming backward and going forward and then coming backward. So it is going into a clockwise pendulum animation, right? So let me show you now. So it is not just changing the color now, it is also changing the height and width, because at 0 the color is something, and at the 100% the width height is also changing. So it looks like, yeah, so everything else is height and width are changing, so the remaining elements are changing. Isn't it looking like your heart is beating? It's pumping up, and then it's like your lungs are expanding and contracting. So you can do this on various images also. Suppose you have an image and you want to, suppose you, let's try that. Let's do this one. So let's have a image of a lung. I will try and find the image of a lung, and then we will apply this behavior there where it is increasing in dimensions. So picture of human lung. Okay, so this one, let's take this one. Copy image, and I will paste here. Oh, I will have to save that, not save image as, and I say save it in our work folder, and I say .jpg. Okay, so and I add in the here is equal to lung.jpg, then of I suppose I change it to img. So let me remove the div. I don't need it. My animation will now work on img. Okay, so let's now refresh the page, and it is increasing and decreasing, but this is not so good. Our two side lungs should expand, and while the pipe should remain on its position. So we can make it look different by taking both sides of the lung separate, and then that will expand and collapse. It will look like a movie for us, right? So we can use animations to make extremely interesting web pages, and this is the advantage that CSS is bringing to us, right? It looks like a movie or media running, while it is a simple image getting different dimensions, and the dimensions are transitioning through animations, right? So this is so good. Let me show you some application of transition on the app. So let me open this page or the app, and what is happening, the header is rotating 360 degree before stopping. Yeah, so I can do other as well. So yes, let me see the code, what has been written here. So it is the code, the task code. We already made it is I'm adding transitions. So I have added animations and transitions, of course. So I have defined a new animation, which is I have named it as zoom in, and from 0 degree to transform rotate 360 degree. So I wanted to have a rotation, and that rotation is made available through the transform. Okay, 2D transform. And then I am setting those styles. So initially it is rotating at 0 degree, and finally it is rotated at 360 degree. So basically it will come back to from 0 to 0, but 360 will make it fully rotated and then come. Zoom in has to be used. And where am I using it? I'm using it the style that is applied to the title. And for title, the style class is title. So that is where I am going to use this animation. And I said animation zoom in 5 seconds, and fill mode is both. So what I said, fill mode is both, or I could have said forward or backward. There are values, of course. Animation. So 5 seconds, the transformation is getting applicable from 0 degree rotation to 360 degree rotation. And I can also say the animation. What was the property? Animation iteration count, right? If I do that, then what will happen? Animation iteration count, and I say infinite, then what will happen? This will continue to rotate forever. It will not stop. So it will rotate like a clock. You stopped for a second, and then again it started. You see, this is so it is continuously rotating, and so it's not so appropriate for this text. But if we have something where we want to do this kind of animation, it will be so nice. Another transition that I'm using is on here. So if I add a task, and then I have this mouse moved over this box, but I'm increasing the font size, but you see the transformation is happening. So transformation is actually transition is happening from font size normal to font size larger. Okay, and rest of the things are adjusting automatically. So you can make your page quite a lot interactive by using transitions, transformations, and animation. And other properties make it different in different states. All right, so that is all that I have. What I will do is I will share this example with you, all examples, and I will expect you guys to make this web page little more animated and interesting. Okay, so you have the code with you will have the code with you. So make the changes in my task list. So I will be sharing two files. My task list HTML is the RWD copy, and this one is a little animated copy. You can make it more and more animated, and then maybe share that back with me later to see how to show how much animation you could introduce in this particular web application. Fine. So styling with animation makes it so powerful. All right. So animation property has this default. I mean, these are the things that you can specify in this order, but that is the end of today's session. All right. So any question before we end the day today, the last day tomorrow? Okay, I'll share the code. You can practice, and it will be quite a lot of fun, I believe. So tomorrow, which will be our last day for this season and this course, we will take a look at some of the ready-made uh, style sheet libraries. I have been referring to that today. I will also introduce you to IDE, an integrated development environment, which will be more capable than the Notepad++, because now you see that is getting longer and have very easily distinguishable sections like styling is separated from HTML, and then you have JavaScript, which can be separated. So you may like to define or create separate files for JS and CSS, and then integrate them into your HTML. That will make your code more reusable as well. Okay, so how you can make things reusable, how you can organize your code better, how to use the IDE, and something which will help you prepare for deeper learning. The requirements, things that we have done, is it enough? Do we need to learn more? And what are the things we should learn going forward? That will not. And revision, if you have any topic that you want me to revise again, we can take a look at that tomorrow. All right. Thank you so much for being with me.